I advocate being happy with what you have, but I also advocate wanting more. I'm really happy with what I have. I'm really grateful for what I have, and I want more. So you want to be hungry and you want to be happy in equal measure. If you're too happy and not hungry enough, that's called complacency. That's called stagnation. If you're hungry, really hungry, and you're not happy, that could be desperation. That could be misery. That could be envy of what everybody else has. So you want happiness and hunger in equal measure. And then finally, it's a belief that everything leads to ultimate success. So my invitation to you today is that whatever happens today, good or bad, just say, this is going to lead to my success. So if you have a great day today, it's going to lead to your success. If you have a not so great day today, it's going to lead to your success. How many of you have ever had one of those days when you believed that God had nothing better to do than make your life a misery? We all have days like that, right? You want to see that day as a major opportunity to rethink, recalibrate, reinvent, and move forward. Because we don't take those actions when everything is hunky-dory. We do take those actions when we know we have to either fix things or realign things. So here's the mantra of personal challenge. I'm ready, bring it on. So just turn to a person on either side of you, and with all the conviction you have within you, just look them in the eyes and say, I'm ready, bring it on. Yeah. And by the way, I get you to say these things because if you just think these things, they're not really real. What happens when you just think something is you think you know, but you don't really know because you haven't manifested it or shared it with somebody else. And by the way, the word always precedes the action. If you say the words, then you're ready to take action. If you don't say the words, you're not ready to take action. And if all you take away from my session today is this phrase, so next time you're confronted with a problem or a crisis in your office, just look at the people around you and say, I'm ready, bring it on. With that kind of smile that says, in my previous life, I was Dirty Harry.
Or Vin Diesel.
Or Vin Diesel. Okay, let's go to the second star social value, adaptive navigation. This is the capacity to adapt oneself to life's uncertainties and change. You know, your happiness is a direct function of your ability to adapt real time. As things change, you want to change. It's the desire to explore complexity as a learning experience and source of opportunity. Now, please understand, I am not saying that you shouldn't feel afraid when you're confronted with the desire to explore complexity. But fear is your friend. Fear is what keeps you sharp. Another word for fear is respect. It's the understanding that complexity is the antithesis of neat and tidy. You know, 40 years ago, there was a famous Canadian called Marshall McLuhan who said the medium is the message. Today, a not-so-famous Canadian, because not that many people know how well-known I am, is telling you this: the mess is the message. We're living in the mess age. So your ability to live with T's that haven't been crossed and I's that haven't been dotted and N's that are still loose will determine your effectiveness. You do not want to be someone who needs to go home every night with an empty inbox. Because I see so many people, Because I see so many people who spend their time emptying out their inbox to the point where they're even answering spam. Or very close to it. How many emails are you wasting your time with that you could just as easily delete or ignore? It's the ability to focus on what counts while seeing the bigger picture. So you want to keep the main thing, but you also want to see the context. You want to be able to understand what's going on around you as you take your actions. Because every action is a cause set in motion. Jim Collins, who wrote the fabulous book, Great by Choice, talks about zooming in, being able to go into the granularity of something, and then zooming out and seeing it from the bridge. And that's the mark of a leader, being able to be incredibly detail-oriented and also being big picture. And it's also the ability to go fast and slow. You know, sometimes you've got to respond reflexively, instantaneously. And sometimes you want to pause and think and breathe and then take action. And the challenge is to know when to do what. And I see Stephanie smiling there. Steph, I don't think you'll ever be able to do this, so just give up now. For Stephanie, it's go fast. So here's the adaptive navigation mantra. Life is a magical mystery, and I'm going to solve it. So just turn to a person on either side of you and say, life is a magical mystery, and I'm going to solve it. All right. Okay, let's go to 3. So far we've spoken about personal challenge and adaptive navigation. Let's look at full expression. This is a desire to fully develop and express one's talent and personality. In that magic quadrant, what we see are people telling us that their happiness is a direct function of the fact that they feel fully used. They feel fully employed. They don't come home at night feeling as though only a fraction of themselves has been let out to play. It's a need to communicate authentically and spontaneously with others, which is why you are all here, which is why this meeting isn't happening via streaming video, which is why even bloggers have an annual convention in Vegas, which is why, despite the explosion of social media, there are more face-to-face meetings than ever before. People need to be with other people. They need to talk spontaneously and authentically. And I'm going to ask you to do something. In fact, let me preface that with a question. How many of you have ever been in a meeting and you know you have had something valuable to say, but you didn't say it? How did you feel about yourself afterwards when you had this valuable thing to say that you didn't say? How did you feel about yourself? Pretty crappy, right? And why didn't you say those things that you wanted to say? Because you were scared of looking bad. You were scared of looking stupid. Don't worry what people think about you, because if you knew how little time they spend thinking about you, you wouldn't worry what they think about you. In fact, while you were talking, they probably weren't even listening. But don't let your fear of embarrassment lead to a prolonged period of regret. And I don't know about you, but the pain of regret is vastly more severe than the pain of embarrassment. Because what you consider to be embarrassment, the other person considers a non-event. It is, and this is the most important phrase I can share with you the whole morning, inspired performance sustained by a passion for the grind. So every single day, you and I have got to show up and we've got to do certain things, right? And often we have to do the same things tomorrow and the day after and the day after that we've done the last day, and the day before that and the day before that. It's called a routine. It's called a certain schedule. But it's how we do those things that define how well we do those things. So, in any given year, I will give about 120 talks. How would you feel about me today if I was introduced as Mr. Lipkin, the great motivator, when he's on, who is here to somehow get through his 102nd talk? Would you be sitting there in eager anticipation of my message? No. So for me, I've got a passion for this. And this ain't easy. In fact, if you want to be preeminent, nothing is easy. But if you have a passion for that grind and you bring that passion to everything every day, chances are you bring out your best game. It is the reverse of regret and procrastination. So if you want an antidote to regret and procrastination, fully express yourself now. As I say to folks, procrastinate later. And finally, it's an understanding and an appreciation that we're all either amplifiers or inhibitors of each other's power. And I don't know about you, but there are some people, mercifully few, who when I work with those people, I've got to walk on eggshells. I feel like I can't even move my hands because they might get upset. How many of you know people like that where you really have to be careful? Because one word, man, and they explode in multiple directions. You also want to ask yourself to what extent you are like that. Histrionics waiting to happen. We all know people like that. You want to be someone that other people cannot wait to have the meeting with, because you're going to make the meeting great. So, The mantra of full expression is, I declare my interdependence. I'm all in, and I'm playing full out. Just say that to somebody close to you. Yeah. Yeah. By the way, try that mantra. I guarantee you, if you're in a meeting and someone says to you, you know, how you doing? You go, man, I'm all in and I'm playing full out. And say it like that. You won't offend anybody. People will go, whoa, what are you on? Red Bull and bananas. Okay, emotional control. And by the way, there's a certain sequence to these as well, right? Because you get the first three right, you can now get into a position where you can control your emotions. This is the ability to choose one's emotions constructively in the face of chaos, crisis, or uncertainty. What amazes me is that two people can be in the same situation, same expertise, same resources, same intelligence, and react so differently because one has the capacity to control their feelings through logic and reasoning in extreme circumstances, and the other does not. So here's the challenge about emotional control. We respond emotionally first, and then we think about why we responded like that. Because our emotional response is a more primitive response. Our rational response is a higher order response, which is why sometimes it needs to be fight or flight spontaneously, and sometimes you want to just take a breath. Count to the proverbial 10. Sleep on it until the next day. And never, ever emotionally indulge yourself in an email. Have you ever received an emotional email sent to you in caps with multiple exclamation points? How stupid does that look? And then, by the way, all it takes is the touch of a forward button, and you're an idiot to the planet. So, control your emotions in extreme circumstances, because here's a news flash. From here on in, it's called extreme circumstances. I don't know that we're going to go from the circumstances we're in to anything milder or more stable than where we are right now. Right? It's achieved through mindful practice and self-evaluation. So the more you practice, the better you become, as long as it's mindful practice, not just habitual practice. And then it's the mental sharpness to see what's pivotal in dire situations and the emotional toughness to act accordingly. So when you are in a situation this afternoon, listen to the conversation. Listen to the cross currents. And then pluck out what you believe is important. Share with the people around you that you believe that's important, and share with them, here's what I believe we need to do. Now, you may have a group of people who have a different point of view. Share your point of view, listen to their point of view, and then at the end of the day, be the catalyst that helps the team form a point of view. And once the team has formed that point of view, execute that point of view like it's yours, even if it's not. I'm in a situation right now with a large client that shall remain nameless, comprised of really smart people, each of whom think that their way is the way. And they'll be in a meeting, and they'll talk, and they'll share, and they'll dialogue. And then they won't reach a conclusion. And then the boss lady will reach a conclusion for them. And they'll say, okay, that's what we'll do. And then after the meeting, they go, well, I didn't agree to that. Well, that wasn't my point of view. And, oh, well, I'll just sort of kind of quasi do it. And that's called passive aggression. So once the group decides, then you need to execute that as though it was your decision. Because frankly, let me tell you what I'm seeing right now, is that so often the difference between exactly the right decision and the wrong decision is minuscule. And if you execute like a champion, then you'll get to the wrong place faster so you can get to the right place. You understand? So it's about taking the right action. Does this make sense? So here's the mantra. No one and no thing can make me do what shouldn't be done. I choose my response. I own my actions. So please just share that mantra with someone close to you. Right. Okay, by the way, I will ask you never, ever again to say the following phrase: she's driving me crazy. Or he makes me mad. No, they're not doing anything. You're responding in a way and you are placing the onus on them. That's the antithesis of quadrant 4, or the magic quadrant. Okay, let's go to 5, commitment to health. Yeah, I see some more. Listen, if you get this one wrong, don't worry about the other 8. And by the way, you can go online. The survey and the code is in the book. Evaluate yourself on these scores. We have a panel of close to 2,000 C-level people, that's people, north of middle management. And this was the score that they scored lowest on. So I just think that's ironical, right? I see my friends from Good Life shaking their heads at this, right? Yeah. By the way, how many of you in this room are not members of Good Life? Can I just see by show of hands? Those are the folks you want to talk to. Right? This is a message from one of the sponsors. All right? So it's about commitment to health. Focus on diet, exercise, and self-transformation to create a healthy life. You do not need me to walk you through this. It's all over. But eat those foods, do those things that are going to massively optimize your well-being. It's a direct function of one's love of life and the desire to preserve it as long as possible. Someone once said to me that we love the things that we don't have anymore because we realize how amazing they were. But once you lose certain things, they don't come back. And by the way, there are no little things, because the little things, when we look back at them, those are the big things. And when people do become ill, and all of us in this room have been through a version of that, either ourselves or someone close to us, what we really want when we don't have it is our old life back. Well, you've got your old life, celebrate it, be cognizant of it, and do whatever it takes to preserve and extend it. Prioritizing one's total well-being over everything else. Above caring for anybody else, care for yourself. Because if you are not in extraordinary shape, mentally, physically, emotionally, you're incapable of taking care of anybody else. And then it's, of all the things I've shared with you this morning, this may be the most important. It's an appreciation of the ecosystem that we all form with each other. So people who are not healthy hang with people who are not healthy. People who are vibrant, people who are conscientious, people who are diligent, people who are on fire. Hang with people like that. Because that's the ecosystem in which they live. That's why we're all part of each other's ecosystem here. And by the way, this morning is going well, not because of the words I'm saying, but because of the way you are listening. The way we listen to others becomes their opinion of themselves. So this morning, this creation is a result of one person, and that's the person in your chair, as well as everybody else in their chairs, and the conductor up front. So, here's my favorite mantra: age is my friend. And by the way, when you say this one, I want you to say it with passion. Age is my friend. I am an athlete. I can be sharper, smarter, stronger every day. So please say this with conviction to somebody close to you. Right. Great. Okay. Notice, I didn't say faster, because by definition, speed might be a function of youth, but we can be sharper, we can be smarter, and we certainly can be stronger in many, many ways. Okay, let's go to 6 as we move towards a close here. Uncommon purpose. And I'm going to just depart a little bit with this slide and look at this visual, because I think it's such a great visual. How many of you have got children under the age of 8? Okay, quite a few young families in this room. So how many of you would agree with me that when you're under 8, everything is important? When you're under 8, you believe you can fly. When you're under 8, you believe you've got magical superpowers. In fact, when you're under 8 and you see someone levitating, you go, okay. Because that's the way the world is. It's the world of Harry Potter, right? You've got a magic wand and you can do stuff. And then somehow something happens between that age and 30 or 40 or 50, and you lose your belief in magic. And when one considers the icons who are and who have transformed the world, whether it's the Steve Jobs of this world, whether it's the Tina Turners of this world, whether it's the Jamie Olivers of this world, or the Gandhis of this world, or the Mandelas of this world, they never lost their belief in magic. It's just a different kind of magic, maybe an even more powerful magic. In fact, Sergey Brin from Google says, we believe that impossible is nothing because everything's possible. You know, now with the aid of 3D printers, one can print a highly complex steel and iron product instantly. And it's extraordinary what's available. And one doesn't have to understand it in order to leverage it. I don't understand what drives electricity. I just understand that there's a switch. I've got to know where the switch is, and I've got to know if up means lights, down means dark. Great. I don't have to understand, you know, how Nova Scotia power works. In fact, no one understands that. Exactly. I'm waiting for the call, right? So this is an awareness of a higher intelligence and an intense desire to understand how it impacts one's life. Just a sense that there's something bigger than all of us driving us, and how do we tap into that? It's search for a higher purpose that gives meaning to one's day-to-day activities. Now, yesterday, I took the group through a conversation where I went against prevailing wisdom and said it's not about the why. Because everyone who I'm working with right now understands that one needs to change. Unless you're a moron. Unless you're cloistered in a cave somewhere in Afghanistan and you're not reading anything. You understand that one has to change. So it's not about the why. Amateurs need a why. Professionals just get down to work. It's about the what of change. What do I need to change? It's about the how do I change? What's the process? And then it's about the when do I need to change? So what we're seeing over here is you do need to have that why, because it gives you that extra oomph. It gives you that extra motivation in the critical moments. And it also allows you to think about it differently. Like, in this specific moment, I could see this as just a talk to a real smart, turned-on group of people, or I could see this moment as a defining moment, as a collective moment of destiny. That's what I think this moment is. Can you feel it? Or is it just me? Right? It's a superior ability to cope with adversity through empowering interpretation. You know, I'm talking to you now at the rate of about 200 words a minute. You are thinking at the rate of about 800 words a minute, which means while Mike is talking to you, 3 other people are talking to you at the same time. No. What are they saying? Because how many of you have been in a meeting where there have been such a cacophony of voices in your head, you can't even hear what the other person's saying? So you want to be someone who is thinking about the moment, thinking about why this is such an extraordinary moment, even if it's a painful moment, because then you'll get through that moment. When I met Nelson Mandela and I asked him what it was like suffering all those years in prison, he said, I didn't suffer. I prepared to live my life every day, so when I was released, I would transform my nation into the kind of nation I dreamt of it becoming. So that was his interpretation of his experience. Not an affliction, not a burden that he couldn't deal with, an opportunity to prepare to live his life in such a way that when he was released, he would transform his nation. That's how he lived his life. And all of us have got something of a Mandela within. And by the way, compared to Nelson Mandela, how's your life looking? Right? And then finally, it's service to one's fellow human being.